Today I want to show you how I try to get through the massive difficulty spike in the first tier 2 dungeon, what gear you should focus on, and which mistakes you should try to avoid. Let's start with the gear, since I had a few questions about that. For the most part, I follow this formula. I try to get physical resistance first, then other resistances, then maximum HP, then immunities, then damage penetration, and then increased damage. But increased damage and even the damage penetration right now really is very low on the priority list. It's more of a bonus. At this point, really every class should have enough damage to kill all the enemies. And if you run into a really tough combination of classes that you can't kill, you probably won't be able to kill it even if you have some few bits of increased damage or some damage penetration. So if you look through the items, most of it is just following this formula, getting the increased life whenever I can. I also grab some accuracy, since on Sun Paladin here I need it pretty badly. So it's really pretty simple. For my tool I have this stinging totem, which is alright. It's anti-heal, which can be useful, although I would much rather have the psionic shield or even something like the storm wand that creates an AoE that constantly dazes enemies. I didn't find a bright lantern of health, so I'm just using this one that only has +3 light. Thankfully Paladin has light radius through Chant Adept, so I still have 8 light radius. And well, this means that you won't be able to see some enemies and they can attack you before you see them. It should mostly be fine if you are careful, and most of the most dangerous enemies will try to get close melee range to you, so those you should still be able to see. I got this really sick ring. This is the kind of item that when it dropped made me go wow, because it gives me life and physical resistance and even the damage mod, so I like this one a lot. And the rest, again, just a bit of immunity, some resistances, and a pretty good weapon. I've now done a bunch of these Sun Paladin runs, and this drops surprisingly often, and it's a really good weapon for this specific part of the game. There is another more selfish reason why I am doing this, and that's because I think playing 3 rogue characters in a row with access to Tumble has seriously damaged my ability to assess which fights are safe and which are not. I just can't seem to be able to stop myself from overextending, and unlike on the rogue characters, Sun Paladin does not have Tumble. In fact, he doesn't really have any mobility at all, other than Path of the Sun, which you usually use at the beginning to get close to the enemy. So I have developed some new, fresh technology. It's double movement infusion, simply because just one sometimes isn't enough. And Sun Paladin gets debuff cleansing through Chant Adept. With 1 more point I will be able to cleanse 2 debuffs, so hopefully I can get away with this double movement infusion setup. And I think it's a good idea to record this video when I'm trying this, because utilizing your movement infusion is really maybe the most important thing you can do to raise your survival rate. I also don't have track on this run, so you'll see how I do it when I can't see enemies through walls. So Sun Paladin can cheat a little bit, and you move on the Path of the Sun instantly. So you can very safely just run around like this and just look if you see any enemy. But let's say you don't. The best way you can check if, let's say, there's a unique right here, is that you simply turn every corner as if there was a unique waiting for you. So this means using some kind of defensive buff. So I have a shield on Sun Paladin, so I can use that. Maybe bathe in the light, which buffs it a little bit. I get it to 150. Now I turn the corner, and if it's standing right here, I have a bit of a buffer and a better chance to beat it than if I didn't pre-buff. Now obviously, there is a limit to what is optimal and what is fun. So instead what I will do is simply just do the shield. Ideally you would have the psionic shield, that would give you quite a lot of defense. So if I would have the psionic shield, I would just click the psionic shield and then turn the corner. I wouldn't even bother with the barrier, because you're going to do this a lot. Obviously there are a lot of corners to turn, and it's just not particularly satisfying gameplay wise to spend 10 turns turning every corner. And you saw right there that in zones like Maze specifically, track isn't even that great because it has a lot of rogues, as in like the base type of the enemy is a rogue. So even if it's an Oozemancer, they will be able to stealth, and track sometimes doesn't pick up stealthed enemies. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you don't want to entirely trust it. Also, you'll notice I don't auto-explore in zones like this, where they are really tough and you are at a really weak point. You should do your best to not auto-explore. That will help your survivability a lot. Despite me being a melee character, I do most of my combat from range, and that's because of Wave of Power, which is the most powerful attack of Sun Paladin, and it is actually ranged. I mean, you can use it in melee, but if you use it from range, you get an additional attack after an already powerful attack. So this can one-shot even rare enemies. And it's really the best, safest playstyle that Sun Paladin can do, where you see an enemy like this Marauder. Although, since I can use this, I can go back and pre-buff a little bit. And I run here, I just hit it with the Wave of Power. And for the sake of being as careful as possible, there's really nothing stopping you from just walking back and waiting for this to come back up. It has a pretty short cooldown of like 5 turns, so now I will just wait for the wolf to come up and hit him again. Here you can even just rest, you don't need to wait turn by turn. He comes around the corner, well, he's too far right now. So I can shoot him with this. Wave of Power, he throws some knives, I can run back again. Put up the shield. The one good thing about the Sun Paladin shield is that it lasts for 10 turns, so let's say I will wait 1, 2 turns, put up the shield, put up the Path of the Sun, and he's dead. This is really the best, safest way to do it. The only problem is that you need space to kite away, but this really is the secret to fighting a lot of the tough enemies. A lot of them don't have healing, or have very little of it, so that you can disengage, get your powerful cooldowns back, and they will not be able to heal to full in the time frame. So you can just take it slow and keep kiting back and just whittle them down over time. You never really want to like fully engage into combat where you are just fighting to the death, because eventually you're going to lose that bet, and on roguelike you can't afford to lose that bet. So hopefully we'll run into some uniques soon, so we can test this out further. I guess while we wait, I can say that it is entirely reasonable and logical if you are struggling in this part of the game. I think it is by far the most difficult part. The vast majority of my deaths happen from level 20 to level 30. So if you are stuck at this point and you seem to just be unable to push through this barrier, I would look at it from a different perspective, and that's that you are quite close to actually getting your win. Because once you survive this once, like I would say this is the biggest increase to the percentage chance you have of beating the run. If you survive level 20 to 30, then I would say the majority of my runs end up in a win. So it doesn't seem like there are any enemies at all, actually. Rare, normal, just doesn't seem very populated. So what I'm expecting is that eventually I will turn a corner and there will be 5 uniques just standing next to each other. One part I didn't mention are the resistances, which look like this currently, which I think is pretty decent for a heavy armor character. It will always look a lot worse than if you wear light armor and robes, but hopefully I should be able to get some better constitution gear, since now I will be getting a higher tier of items, and then I can quickly put points into thick skin to fix these up a little bit. You don't really want to see single-digit resistances in tier 2s, but at the same time, having 30% physical resist and a lot of armor does make me feel pretty safe. And all these like ranged enemies, while they might hurt a lot, usually they can't one-shot you, and once you know they are there, you can, let's say I would get hit from like this direction for most of my health. I could just run around the corner, wait for them around the corner, and once these ranged enemies are in melee range, you can usually kill them pretty quickly. but if it's a rogue or a brawler or a doombringer, it's difficult to avoid them hitting you and damaging you. So physical resistance is just a must. There are also physical spells, so it's just the most common damage type, the one that's most likely to one-shot you, so you can never really sleep on it. Okay, here's my second rare of the whole dungeon, and I've cleared like, 1/3 of it. I'm going to implement the same strategy by just, well, this one is really low, but this is actually a good example, right? So it's really low, it's quite weak, it's just a Berserker. So what I could do right now is just walk to it, or even use one of my movement infusions, right, and finish it off. I would definitely kill it, and I definitely do that sometimes, right? Sometimes you see a weak enemy, and just go and finish it off. But really the correct, safe play is again to just take it slow, because what could be happening right now is that right here is a unique, that is a brawler, marauder, just waiting for me to come into range. And maybe, let's say, that before I finish off the Berserker, he will also manage to stun me, and I will have to cleanse that. So suddenly this unique opens up on me without my movement infusion, without my wild infusion, and it's just an entirely preventable problem if I just walk back and don't get greedy. Obviously that, like a lot of the other things, is just a matter of willpower, really. How safe you are willing to play, capable of controlling yourself. So I'm just telling you what you can do, and the extent of, oh, look at this belt. That's really good. 100 HP. Yeah. That's a big help. That's really what you want to see from your first couple of items that drop. So there's some kind of rogue right here, so I'm just gonna walk back. It's probably just a white rogue, but you never know. I'm just gonna rest. Well, it might be doomed actually. It is targeting me currently. So I just blinded the stealth the doomed right now, I think. But I missed it. And it's dead. But it does not seem that that was the rare, so the doomed is probably somewhere further. Yep, right here. And it's also dead. But since I just used Wave of Power, again, I don't really want to fight this Minotaur while exposing myself to this corridor that I've not really cleared yet. So I'm just going to stay back here, take my time, shoot some ranged attacks at him, kill him, and here we go. It really isn't that much slower than auto-exploring, so I personally don't find this to be a problem. And, I mean, I think I used to auto-explore, but once auto-explore screws you over a few times, you will learn to stop relying on it as much. Alright, so here's the Mind Slayer. You should always check if you're playing a weapon class, their defense and buffs, like for example evasion. This is up to 50%, so this makes it very difficult to try and fight him. But it has a decent cooldown, so you can guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to run away, get my health back since he damaged me a little bit. I can even swap to the Chinto Fortress, that gives me a bit of extra armor. And let's shoot him. And he's dead. So while I'm looking for the unique, I guess I can talk about the ways that I died. And for the most part it was running out of movement options, not being able to run away and being stuck in fights that I just could not win. Which is why you should always have a way out, a plan B, a backdoor, whatever you want to call it. Basically never fight fair. This is easier on some of the other maps. Maze has these long tunnels. You can't dig through them. So sometimes you are stuck in a situation because some of the enemies can teleport also. So let's say I meet a Paradox Mage unique here, and then as I'm running away he teleports in front of me. Now I'm kind of stuck. Maybe let's say I'm also low HP, so I can't run past him. I can't risk that. and now I don't really have a way to go. That sometimes happens in the maze, and that's really dangerous. On a lot of the other maps, okay, this is just a Bulwark, which is a really weak class. I just died. On maps like Old Forest or Daikara, it's a lot easier, since you usually have ways that you can circle around and just kind of infinitely kite an enemy. Generally, you shouldn't really ever fight enemies for longer than like, I don't know, 10, maybe 20 turns, if it's a really tanky enemy. But if you're fighting them for longer than that, it's probably a sign that you should walk away and not fight them. But I fight them anyways all the time, at which point you just apply this running away strategy as much as possible. If you have enough space, then you can kill even the really hard enemies. Unless they just out-heal all your damage, at which point you actually just have to walk away. Alright, so here's a Solipsist Berserker, and I misclicked, and instead of walking on the path, I walked up, so I took some damage. I don't really have any mind resistance, so those Solipsist attacks could potentially be dangerous. But the good news is that the AI Solipsists often take Mindstorm, which is not the best talent ever. It makes you unable to move, so it makes it easy to run away from them. Ideally here I would pop my healing infusion, but I don't have that, so just to be 100% sure, I'm just gonna pop my movement wealth infusion to get the resistances. That's what it does when it says it reduces all damage. As an extra precaution against one-shots. I probably normally wouldn't do this, I would just kill it with this. I didn't kill it, so now I just run away. Check which path actually leads away. Safe in the light, healing light, barrier. We can see it here coming up. So maybe I hide a little bit, wait for Path of the Sun. Or at least pop Providence. Check back, still not there. Now Path of the Sun is up, I can peek around the corner again. Again, this guy can't really heal. Berserkers usually have Vitality, which is a big burst of regeneration once they are below 50% HP, but this guy doesn't even seem to have that. So this strategy is pretty flawless against this guy. By the way, if you see, like for example, the information when I hover over the enemy, if it's different than what you are used to, or the items and either the descriptions here or how the showing of the stats works, that's because of some of the add-ons that I use. I'll show them on the screen right now. So again here, since I know there are not really any other enemies, I would probably just go and kill it, but you know, let's not... You can hear the Mindstorm here. That's not really going to be very dangerous to us. I'm just going to walk back, press my rest button. He's still alive, unfortunately. Alright, let's go kill him. I think I've shown enough discipline, right? Running back 3 times, that seems good enough. Sander Bulwark. In terms of classes, like I've mentioned it in the insane survival guides, but really the most dangerous melee classes like Bulwark, Berserker, all these not very dangerous. You're only really looking at Brawler and like Doombringer. Those are very dangerous. And then the rogue enemies, not the best, but honestly the rogues are the worst because of poison, which they will apply with every attack, and some of the poisons can give you a chance to fail using your talents. Oh, and I finally got my Psionic Shield, so that's very nice. That should make this a lot easier, even though it's been pretty easy so far. And now I have a better pre-buff around corners. Once I hit level 20, I'll go back to town, since every 10 levels the shops refresh, or you get new items. And I mostly want that for my inscriptions, which right now are pretty decent. My movement infusions are good, but this wild infusion has a pretty high cooldown and lasts for only 2 turns. The all resistances. And this Shatter Afflictions is actually really good. It doesn't give you a lot of shield, because it kills with Constitution, but that doesn't matter. All that matters is the cooldown. And 12, I think, is the lowest, or it's definitely on the really low side. So I might not do it this time on level 20, but generally, usually your inscriptions won't be that great, depending on your luck, so it's a good idea to go back once you hit level 20. So I'll speed up a little here, just to give you a more of a realistic gameplay experience, because obviously you're not going to be playing that slow. You might keep that up for, a little bit, but eventually you start playing faster. Although that is how my deaths have happened so far, was just by making really stupid decisions without really thinking them through. And one of the easiest way to die in this game is to try and rush back, which is what happened to me, where I was like, oh, I can't believe I died. Now I gotta go get back to where I was. Let's just speed run the tier 1 dungeons. And then I just kept dying on like level 10. It was pretty horrible. And Tome really punishes just overconfidence and stupidity. So right now there's a guy right next to me, some kind of rogue character. So I'll just pop maybe the Sun Cloak, wait for him to reveal himself. Alright, we cleanse that, get some speed, it's just a Berserker. So this shouldn't really be a problem. Also, since I talked about the gear, sometimes I had a question about saving gear. I don't really do that, ever. Like, I don't really save gear to like swap into in the middle of combat. The only gear I save is either Constitution gear, so that I can get my thick skin, or if I want a Prodigy that has a specific stat requirement. And then I sometimes save items where I'm not sure which one I want to use. So for example, this Battle Axe has very similar stats to the Drake's Bane, but it gives a little bit of accuracy. So this, depending on how much of a problem that is, I might use this one. But the Drake's Bane gives me a lot more armor penetration and stun immunity. So I like that a lot also. So, I mean, I guess I lied. So if I met an enemy that, on weapon classes specifically, if accuracy is a problem, you might save a high accuracy item. Also, if you wonder why my level up bar is flashing, that's because I don't have one class point assigned, because I don't really know exactly where to put it right now. And once I hit level 20, I'm going to invest heavily into Crusader, so I'm just saving some of these points. Obviously you can float points and take them back, but just, it's because I'm lazy. Like, I could do it, I could put it here for the 2 extra % crit chance, but I don't really feel like it would make that much of a difference. I don't think I've ever had this peaceful of a dungeon. I ran into 1 unique and like 3 rares, and that's it. Alright, well, it seems like it's mostly clear, so here at the end I'm gonna auto-explore to pick up anything that I might have forgotten, but it doesn't seem like I did forget anything, so let's pre-buff a little bit, since the maze boss aggroes on you immediately, which you can just go back, which I think resets it, and then he doesn't aggro onto you anymore, but I actually prefer that he just rushes you right at the beginning. Yeah, let's start just by fully pre-buffing as if he was right next to me. And then if he's not going to be right next to me, we can just leave and come back. So at the end, I quickly just scan for any Constitution gear. Usually, if it's like an item that I'm looking to upgrade, I will look through it as it drops. Alright, so we don't see anything, which is good. You don't want enemies right as you enter, because that means that the boss could ambush you as you are fighting with that enemy. Although again, you can probably just leave and then you're fine. What I'm actually going to do is a quick Path of the Sun to have a peek. Alright, so there's an Annihilator. Annihilators are enemies that I want to mention because they summon turrets, and one easy way to die against Annihilators is to fight them in like a 1x1 tunnel, if this was a wall. If you then go into melee range against Annihilators, they can summon the turret behind you, and like lock you in so that you can't run away, which is really bad. So never underestimate Annihilators if they're tanky. Like just like this, a rare Annihilator is not really dangerous, but yeah, that's a pretty annoying class. Alright, so I'm just gonna press my rest button and wait until the boss shows up. He didn't show up so far, which means he should be pretty close. So I'm going to put up the 10-10 barrier. And maybe I can use the Path of the Sun again to scout. Oh, he's still not here. Alright, let's... Oh, there he is. Alright, so the boss in Maze is harder in the alternate layout. This one I find usually pretty easy, because he just deals some physical damage, which you usually should be pretty resistant to anyways. So, let me... the Psionic Shield... Yeah, let's do it. They have like a... Berserkers have a Shout that does a lot of damage. So, let's reduce that a little bit. Wave of Power. It's a shame I don't have the Path of the Sun. And I don't really want to Movement Infusion here, since there might be some enemies waiting here. So I'm just going to wait. Shoot some of my ranged attacks. Maybe use Providence and save my Chant of Fortitude. Even though there's not really any reason. Okay, I failed. That's fine. I don't really have anything else to do anyways. So I probably should have saved the Psionic Shield. This was a mistake, but... it doesn't really matter. This guy is already dead. Yeah, he'll die before he even gets to me. Alright, so here I can use Fearless Cleave. This is an incredible... I can't actually, he's still... Is he? No, he's two range away, so I can. You can tank it. Let's use Shatter Afflictions to get a bit of a shield, just so we're completely sure. A little Stunning Blow. Cleanse the pin as fast as possible, because you don't ever really want to be pinned. Just so you can always run away, and he's dead. Now in this zone, usually the boss is not actually dangerous. What's dangerous is that it's really small. So it's pretty easy to aggro multiple rare or uniques at once. So you should always be careful about moving too far from the start. But still, it's a walk in the park compared to the alternate zone, where you can't go back up. So if something goes wrong, it's really bad. Okay, we got a lot of Berserkers, which is great, since they're not that powerful. Here we can't really kite back that much, so we're going to have to fight, which is okay. I, again, probably used the Psionic Shield too early. I expected maybe that the Berserker would rush me, but he's blind, I guess. So you know what, let's use a Movement Infusion just for a single square, which I could have done Fearless Cleave instead, which would have been smarter, but oh well. Now we have two physical buffs, we can cleanse them both with my chant. Do some more cleaving, dodge the spit, kill the slime, rest. And yeah, I mean, this was pretty comfortable. Although, obviously, I ran into like a single unique, so if I had trouble with just single rares, that would be a pretty bad sign. Oh, there's an Archmage and a Paradox Mage, which again shouldn't really be too bad. Look at this, this is the power of the Movement Infusion, right? I began running away, and then I got pulled back in, but the Movement Infusion is still active, so I'm just going to run away again. And if you used any other of the escape inscriptions, like the teleport one, then you would not have the teleport anymore. Every time this happens, and it happens pretty frequently, there are a lot of pool type abilities, I just fall in love with the Movement Infusion a little more. Here, I mean, these guys are pretty weak, I can probably just kill them, but, well, this is the problem with no resistance. The Archmage will likely hurt pretty hard, so let's just run around the corner and get full HP and... Wow, he's dead already. Basically, start the fight from an equal footing, right? If I fought right there, I'm a little weaker than I should be, since they got the drop on me. But here, The idea is that they will turn the corner and I will get the first action, making it the best possible version of the fight that I can get. And with a bit of luck, they won't even be right next to each other, since the AI doesn't really always just follow the shortest path. So just wait here. Alright, he teleported like right next to us, which should make things pretty easy, since he will get stunned for 7 turns. And he's dead. Alright, now we can just wait right here for the other one. There he is. And he's also dead. So it was probably the most dangerous part of this dungeon. Maybe this chest will change my mind. It's a bulwark cursed. Now what is annoying is that they are blocking my way out. And I don't have a way to skip past them. That is the basically only downside of the movement infusion. You can't jump over enemies. But let's imagine these two are like 2 super mega bosses that are going to kill me. And I just can't fight them at all. All you need to do is kind of create some distance and make them... They won't be perfectly next to each other the entire time, so... Let's... I mean, we can begin by stunning one of them. Let's stun the cursed. And... Well, since we have double movement infusion, we can utilize this. Well, they actually moved sooner than I thought. Then I got knocked back. Hopefully I won't pay for this with my life. Alright, so that's double mental. Backhand is annoying because it makes me go towards him. Which, for now, is fine. It happened right there. What I'm not sure is if it actually takes my turn or not. Because you saw that I moved 2 tiles, but I only pressed my keyboard once. But let's just cleanse it, just to be safe. Which will cancel this movement infusion, but now I have the other one. Let's also do Grace of the Eternals. And he pulled me back, but it's a movement infusion. And I'm around the corner, now I'm safe, now I just walk back. If they were actually uniques, I would try and leave the zone as fast as possible, so that I can fully recharge. So let's do that. Alright, we're out. I stop, go back, and now we can finish them off. So, even though you can't jump over enemies, you can usually manipulate them in a way that you can get around them. And even if you can't, these situations don't happen often enough so that you should not take a movement infusion. It's still, I think, infinitely better than like a teleport rune. So with these guys dead, I think that's it for the live version of this. I'll be back with more Tome once I get the Sun Paladin run, or I lose my sanity, whichever one happens first. Thank you for watching.